everyone, my name is Zach REDRUP, this is the It's Not a Phase podcast, and on this episode I'm joined by Hail the Sun frontman Donovan Melero. We talk about the band's new album Divine Inattention, approaching a record with a positive mindset, working with producer Kris Crummett, his strong work ethic, his growing Kill iconic brand and business, taking lessons to become a pilot, and loads more. Now, if you enjoyed this or any other episode of the podcast and you want to show your support, there's a few ways that you can do that. Number one, leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. It takes just a few seconds and it really does help. Number two, share this on your social media, whether that be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Or number three, if you want to go the extra mile, you can pay a little bit each month to join the Patreon, and in return you'll get access to episodes early along with some other perks, or you can pick up some merch from the store. All the links to that and the podcast socials where you can follow us can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. And now with all that out of the way, let's jump right into this week's episode of It's Not a Phase. What's up everybody? Thank you for joining me on this episode of It's Not a Phase, where I'm joined by Donovan Melero, who is the frontman of Hail the Sun. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, it's great to have you, man. So yeah, let's dive into obviously the big news, which is album number 6, Divine Inattention, out August 11th on Rude Records and Equal Vision Records. How are you feeling about having this one out there, 6th album?
It's really exciting. We're very grateful to be doing this for as long as we've been doing it. And we feel like the songwriting just continued to expand. And we've never headlined a tour during a rollout of an album. We've always kind of waited till the album's been out for maybe a year. So we're doing the opposite thing right now, and it's really landing. We've noticed these new songs have landed better than any others in the past, and that's just really invigorating for us to be doing such a great headline tour to roll the album out. But overall, there's a large level of excitement, and for a long time, Hail the Sun has felt kind of like a secret in a way, like a secret band. And we come from DIY roots. We come from touring to fucking nobody for the first 2 years, just because that's what we thought we had to do, is play like bartenders from 2010 to 2012. Yeah. So for the long, like that's where our mindset's always been. We did the van and trailer for 8+ years, 9 years. And now it seems like more and more people are discovering us. And it's a really exciting feeling.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if you would agree with this, being in the band itself, but it feels kind of like with the last album, New Age Filth, and a little bit for the album before that, Mental Knife, it seems like you've kind of kept to your roots of, you're kind of like this progressive, experimental, post-hardcore kind of band. But to me, it kind of sounds like from those 2 albums, you've kind of become slightly more accessible, I guess is probably the best word for it, while still maintaining that kind of that template of what Hail the Sun has been since the beginning.
Totally, dude. I would agree with that. And it's not really been intentional. It just has been something that's happened. And on the newer record, Divine Inattention, we did more co-writing with a good friend of ours, Joe O'Cutie, who's in Iceland Kills and partner of mine in Kill Iconic Enterprises, essentially. And of course, Alan, our drummer, basically the 5th member now. He tours with us. He songwrites with us. And I feel like having that combination of minds also kind of it unleashed a different avenue of songwriting.
Well, you mentioned Alan there, so because up until this point it's been you're doing the vocals and the drumming, and I think live you do it kind of like 50-50, or is it like a 60-40%, or have you kind of like relinquished control of the drums on that side of things now?
I've sort of relinquished the drums probably for the last 6 years now, since Alan's been in the picture. But this is the first album, even over the last 6 years, that Alan actually recorded the drums on. And he wrote a lot of the parts. And I still would co-write some parts with him, but he would be the one to maybe spice them up a little bit, or practice it to get it perfect for recording. And it was different for me because I had been recording drums for so long. But Alan's such a talented drummer. He's so capable. He knows us so well that it just made sense. And it was a cool position for me to be in, because I could be in the control room with Kris Crummett and the rest of the band, listening to these drum parts over actual scratch tracks. I'd never been able to hear the drums in that way because I'm always the one tracking it. So that
Yeah.
was kind of cool too. I think it probably influenced some of the ways that the drums even changed throughout the recording process.
Do you still kind of do some of the drums live now, or is it kind of you just do singing the whole way through now?
Yeah, I do about 20 to 30% of the set on drums.
Right. I've not had the chance to see you guys live yet, but whenever I've seen like videos of you, I don't know how one you're doing drums that well and singing that well and doing them both at the same time. Like, it's just insane to watch sometimes.
Oh, thank you, dude. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can play a show near you sometime soon.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think because you were meant to be supporting BS Ocean last winter when you came over, but I think you guys had to
Yeah.
pull out for one reason or another. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, we did. That was a bummer, but we're looking forward to getting back out. And it's nice that we get to tour with them here in the US on this tour.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, with the album, you mentioned, you went in the studio with Kris Crummett doing production, and I think he did the production for the last album as well, didn't he?
He did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Second time with him.
Yeah. What was it like working with him, and what made you want to go back to working with again the second time around?
We've worked with a lot of different producers and we've loved them all. They've all had great strengths. So that being said, he's so meticulous at what he does, and he definitely becomes emotionally involved, and he hears the songs sort of how we hear them. And I like that. And this has been the same with other producers, but when it comes to vocals, Kris will have me demo out what I've written, and if he thinks something can be better, he'll let me know. He'll let me
Right.
know either lyrically or melodically. He will like go back to the drawing board. It's a nice extra filter because he has proven to really understand this scene in music. But I feel like Hail the Sun is starting to be in its own, well, has been for a bit in its own lane. And Kris gets that too. Kris gets that it's not just post hardcore music or just rock music.
Mm.
We'll do this. Divine Intertention has arguably one of our heaviest songs and one of our most easygoing songs.
Yeah.
But with that variety, it still makes sense. I feel like Hail the Sun's at a point in the span of our band's career where it's not weird to have such a juxtaposition on the same record. Like it's not gonna be too weird for our listeners. And Kris was really good at sort of honing that and understanding that as well. And he's great at tone. He knows guitar tones very well. They really take their time. And when I say they really take their time, bro, I mean they fucking really take their time to dial in every part. It's a very time consuming process.
Yeah.
But Kris doesn't ever rush through it, and that's cool. And we respect that, and we just have a really good workflow with him at this point.
Yeah, well, it's good that he's kind of, so meticulous, because you don't want him to kind of, you don't want to work with like a sloppy producer who's just kind of, that will do. That'll pass. We'll put that out.
Totally. Yeah, he becomes very emotionally invested. But that's not to say that people in the past, that the producers that we worked with in the past haven't. I feel like they all have in their own way, and they've all brought something very special to the records. I think that New Age Filth and now Divine Intertention are the most Hail the Sun albums.
Yeah. And, like say before, it's more accessible, but you're still kind of sticking to the Hail the Sun formula. You're like evolving into this more, I don't want to use the word mature because I think that's kind of like thrown around all the time, isn't it? But I think you know what I mean. Like it's evolved into this next stage where you kind of go into the next level. Like you said, Hail the Sun going into its own kind of lane.
Yeah. We feel like we're chipping away continuously at the core of what we do, and we have multiple songwriters that really need their fingerprints on every track for it to sound like a Hail the Sun song. It's really not just one person bringing a song to the table, and even when it is, even if Shane writes a whole song, or Eric or myself, it still is going to get the touch of everyone else, and it always improves it. And everyone's really open to structure changing. I've been in bands where they don't want to rewrite, and it's like what's delivered is what's delivered, and I guess that's cool if you're going to stick to your guns on what you think, but I don't think you can sometimes get to the best product possible if you're not working with people that you trust and people who are open to really trying to find the best version of the song. And with Hail, it really goes through so many filters. That's really what it is, I guess. It's a bunch. It's like you're squeezing out more and more to get to the best possible outcome. And once that goes to the producer and everyone else, it comes out that way. And I'm really happy that we are continuing to find our own path here.
So would you say it's kind of like democratic in the band then? Do you kind of have like a voting kind of system as to what kind of stays, what goes, what changes, making sure everyone's happy with what you're making?
Ultimately, it is a democratic process. But that being said, it's hard to be democratic sometimes about art, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes not everyone's going to agree, but in this band, and something that we're so grateful for, as I mentioned before, is sometimes people will give way. If someone's really, I'll take myself for example. If I'm really fighting for a part and I really think it's what works, especially if it's in our respective instrument, if it's me with vocals or it's Eric with guitar, John with bass, or what have you, then usually they will just say, okay, like if they're the only one out, they'll trust the vision. They'll be okay, then that's that. If we're really at an impasse, we come back to it later. But we've never been at such an impasse that we can't do it. So not everyone has to agree that something's great to move forward. Luckily, that kind of happens naturally. And when it doesn't, it's very easy to sort through that to find the best solution. But we're not really compromising at the sake of the art. We usually get to a better product, even if it's me who's fighting for a part, and then that part gets improved. It's like, oh, great. I didn't realize that there is room for improvement here. Like, let's keep this then. Then everyone's on the same page. We're not just letting shit slide by because we don't want confrontation. It's not like that.
Well, I guess sometimes if you've got a particular vision or a mindset of what would go in a song, like you say, when you're fighting for a part, I guess sometimes you can kind of get tunnel vision as to what your particular vision is. And it's not until you actually see and experience this other input coming from another direction that you see the value in it being in that song.
Absolutely. And I've been there. I've had tunnel vision myself. It's like something that I've written, and I think that this should be how it is. And I'm not going to deny that that's happened. But God, at this point, everyone, it's like we've been married for 12 years. We know each other very well. We know how to get around each other's personalities, or not get around, but rather deal with each other if it ever gets to that point. And someone like, I'll use Alan as an example as well. He does a lot of the vocal pre-production with me. And he'll tell me, like, he'll hear something and I'll sometimes just have to trust his vision. But I do. There's not very many people I feel like I will just kind of let them roll with whatever they're thinking. Like, I feel like we got a pretty good grasp on what we're doing. But Alan is one of them where if he hears something, I really do trust his ear. And he knows he's pushed me in certain directions that when the final product comes, I'm like, oh, this is fucking great. Like, I guess you do know what you're doing, essentially. Yeah. I mean, he also is a fucking producer, and he's great. He's like an undiscovered gem. And he's been a big part of the vocal process as well.
So, I mean, talk to me about the album title, Divine in Attention. Why did you go with that as the album title, and how do you feel that title kind of encompasses, the record as a whole?
This album was the first one lyrically. So I'm speaking lyrically here. That wasn't written from a source of pain or a source of distraught. That stuff it can lead to great art. It really can. And it has. Man, 2020, I wrote a solo record, Chelsea Park After Dark, that along with Alan and Joe Hewdy, that was a way to get through a tough time. But during that process, I started to discover a new way of like really trying to, I feel like it's really trendy these days, the word manifestation, but so I almost hate to use it for that reason, but it's something I've been doing my whole life without realizing it. And in like 2021-ish, I started realizing like just how powerful each one of us are. And I started to come out of this. It felt like I had a whole new perspective. And I started to retell the everyday story. Stop telling myself the same shit that I would tell myself, because I didn't realize that's only fueling those repeated events or ways of thinking. And in that, the idea that we all are pretty powerful creators, there's a divinity about that. One might even say that we are our own God. We are we are part of the universe. We're in the universe, but we are the universe. We come from, as far as we know, the fucking stars. Like, we don't really know everything, but we know what exists around us, and we are a life form that is floating out here in space. And it's just very uncanny how many similarities there are with waves and with rotations and with ebbs and flows. And a lot of that can be a mental state. I feel like many of us, human beings in general, throughout the human experience, are conditioned from a very early age to believe that they should or should not do certain things. And with the exception of causing others harm, I feel like unlearning a lot of that is important to really locate your true potential. So all that to say that there is a tension within all of us, but it doesn't always have to be bad. And I feel like, and the art cover really exemplifies this well. And my brother is the one that did the art for it. There's a guy that's pulling himself apart essentially, but he's having the help of these little things, these little creatures as well. And we sort of see that as life events and retelling your story, not shedding your old skin really, but just knowing that there's so much inside of us. Like the universe is in us. We kind of are our own gods, and there's ways to retell everyday life stories. And it's not always easy, and it's sometimes hard to take my own advice. If this is even advice, which I guess it's not really. It's just a way of thinking that we all really align with. To be in alignment with oneself is to truly be happy, and that can come from within. There's just a lot of beauty all around us. If I keep talking, I know I'm going to go on a fucking great tangent. So I'll just try to wrap it all by saying that I think we are divine entities, and we all have it within us. Everyone's on their own journey. Everyone's doing what they feel is best for them, and we're capable of a lot. It sometimes just it takes relearning and retelling your own story and picturing yourself where you want to be, and knowing that to get there, you just got to have the path of least resistance. Downstream thoughts is a term I've heard before. I try not to swim upstream anymore. I try not to go against the current. It can be very tough, especially in hard times. But I do think the universe, when you are really aligned with yourself, can feel it and can hear it. And it's almost like there's no good or bad. It just feels what it is, where you want to be, where you want to go. And it can assist you with getting there if you're aligned with yourself and realizing your own powerful intentions. That's the long-winded answer to that question.
Well, yeah, I think it kind of portrays it in the artwork as well. Like, you know, there's the big character who's kind of ripping the head open, and then it's like the galaxy's kind of coming out, and then it's the sun as well, which is you know a source of life and heat and positivity.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
You know, I read that and you kind of like alluded to it there in the meaning behind the album's title, but that, you know, the messages within the album revolve around, you know, questioning life, what it means to be alive on a macro and micro level. I think that's something that's kind of been more on the forefront of people's mind and in conversation since the pandemic. You know, people had this opportunity to kind of, you know, take a step back and take stock on their own lives and what's important, what isn't important, what they want to do with their lives. Do you agree that kind of mindset is what's kind of pushed this album forward into its messaging? And do you think that's helped inspire the focus of this album?
Yeah, I think so, especially lyrically. And the rest of my band is very like-minded as well. We all do feel this way and believe this way. And I would argue there's even other members of the band that have already kind of practiced this mindset before I even got around to it. I'm a very overactive thinker. I've got crazy OCD, and I feel like I'm very neurotic and will just dwell and dwell and dwell and dwell and dwell. Anyone in my band will tell you that. Anyone who knows me well will tell you that. So they may have already been there. But on a lyrical content, that's what really helped push things forward for me. I'm really proud of everything we've done up to now. Every sad song, everything that came from a source of pain, which hasn't been the whole catalog, but it has inspired a lot. And it served us well. It served me well up until that point. This was a different take. And I didn't think it would be possible to be so inspired without having that type of strong emotion of sadness, if you will. But it was. I felt kind of re-inspired by just everything. And it happened during the pandemic. What is possible? What we can turn into reality. Everything is an idea at first. I really would dwell on that. I would dwell on how every single thing that exists in our human experience was once an idea. That's all it was. Yeah. And that's great. It's also almost why we all chose this as our path, because there's just so much potential. Like the sky is the limit. playing music can be a gamble, a big gamble for sure. And
Yeah.
that's one of those things I would argue that you're preconditioned from an early age. It's like, oh, there's no future in that. You should get a more stable career. But even the word career, I don't take issue with, and I use it, but really try to view life not as just a linear voyage, but more of like just living, at least now. And it can still be tough to take my own advice. Like I said, I know, and I don't want to eat my words, but when I can, and I try to do this more often than not these days, is just step away and focus on even one thing that I think is great or that makes me feel good. And I take that thought and I try to almost like jumping from stone to stone to things that make me feel good and positive thoughts. And does this serve me? Does this not? I think we're really lucky that up until this point, the same four guys, and for the last 7 years, Alan as well, have grown together, have been on the same journey together. Our lives have gone congruently forward with the band while still bringing in outside additions. Like we all have our own individual lives as well.
Yeah.
That we live outside of the band. But the overall tone has been moving forward, upwards and onward. Anything is possible. We can think it. It can be a thing. Like, let's figure out how to get there. And that alone would make me feel really inspired. It's just really exciting and brings on another huge wave of gratitude.
Yeah.
So much gratitude to be doing what we're doing. And it seems to be only continuing to be a positive force for all of us.
Yeah, yeah. It's like we mentioned like earlier in the conversation, like it seems you guys are just going strength to strength to strength. I mean, you just touched on it there. Like it's so rare to see a band stay together with the same people for as long as you guys have and the amount of albums you've done, because, you know, life gets in the way. And it's totally understandable and valid when people step away because they want other things in their lives. But you guys have stuck together, you know, you're the same unit. And, you know, you've got that same kind of vision of where you want to go, which is clearly only served in your benefit.
Yeah. Thank you. And I would say I've got a really, when I am feeling the most centered with myself and with the people around me in my life, I actually feel a buzz. I can't explain it. And I started experiencing it in like 2021, but I almost feel high. And I feel like I feel like I'm truly vibrating this crazy. I'm going to sound so neurotic, but I just feel like it's a strong pulse. I feel it in the air. And when when one of us feels that way, it sort of rubs off onto the other, and it drives us forward. And it's a really positive feeling. It feels really good. And it feels like anything is possible at that point. Like we can almost taste it. We can almost taste what's coming next. And we've felt that many times in the past. I have as well before we've reached a new milestone in our band. And so it just feels really good. I think we're at a really cool spot in our journey. And I feel like it's only going to continue to grow. But it won't ever be at the sacrifice of the music. I feel like that first and foremost always has to come first.
Yeah, definitely. Because people don't really like to consider music as a product, but in essence, that's kind of what it is. And you've got to think of the product first, right? That's what's kind of going out there. That's what's bringing the fans in. That's what's selling the tickets. That's what's giving you your livelihood. Yeah,
it's got to come first and foremost. But when I'm feeling that like crazy buzzing feeling, I'll try to use that time frame to write down the things I want, whether it's in or out of music, because I feel like doing that, it's really important to write down things to bring them, like that helps make it closer to being a reality, closer to being in existence. And my universe, my God, has really shaped my journey in ways I didn't realize it was doing, to bring me closer to the people I needed to be around and to other elements that I didn't need to be around. And it's been a really amazing experience up to this point. And I only look forward to the rest of this great experience.
Yeah, I guess you writing it down as well just means that you're kind of taking that extra moment to not only appreciate and take in that great moment in your life, but you've got a record of it there that you can refer back to if needed. Yeah,
dude, and we are in total control of our writing. We're in total control of the creative aspect. There's no one else that has the keys to our vehicle, and that's something else that I really need that to operate. Same with Kill Iconic Records, anything else I'm doing, that is a very strong liberty that we're able to take, and it's exciting because we don't have to wait on anything. Like we can really do what we want to do when we want to do it.
Yeah. So on the record as well, you've got some videos out already. You've got the song Chunker and Under the Floor, which have got these cinematic videos accompanying the songs. And it seems at least those two visually kind of have like a thread link in between them. What was it like kind of doing those shoots for those songs?
The video shoots always stress me out, no matter what. They just always do. I feel uncomfortable on camera a lot of the time. I don't really know what to do. I need to be directed, but that's just my experience.
Right.
The other guys may have a different one. And it's always exciting to get together with the rest of the band. We're all still really good friends. So that's something I really look forward to with music videos. But it was the same directors for both and sort of kept the same tone for both as well. And we love working with it was Ori, Dana, and Mike. They're great at what they do. They also understand the vision and are really good with cinematography. But it's a music video, show up, do the treatment, and try to do the best we can. And I try to keep in mind that every single shot might make the cut.
Right.
So not to slack off or have anything where I'm going to later on be like, oh, I didn't like that. Like, let's cut that out. And try to make sure everything is usable.
Well, speaking of the song Under the Floor, I believe, isn't that inspired by the murders of John Wayne Gacy?
Yeah, it is. And we've written about stuff like that in the past. And Eric had suggested, what about something like the John Wayne Gacy stuff, like a story that might at least involve that? Because the initial placeholder title for that song was Vampire's Dungeon, because it just sounded like a very dark, wet, dungeony type of song for whatever reason. And I was demoing some of the vocals with some placeholder lyrics, and the "I Want to Be Your God Too" was a line that really stuck, and that opened up this whole door where the song sort of wrote itself after that. Right. Because I wanted to use that as inspiration, but not just have it be about John Wayne Gacy and his murders. The dude was a narcissist. He sought validation. He needed control over his victims. And I felt like he wanted to be their god. He wanted to own them. He got off in that type of power. So those lines in the song are the only lines that are sung from his perspective. The rest of the song is sung from a deceased victim, someone who he's already killed, who's already underneath the floorboards, which is creepy as fuck that he stored bodies under his floors for so many years. But someone who's under the floorboards, who's seen these other people, future victims, come into Gacy's home, and they're almost just warning them of what's about to take place. Like, you're going to be joining me here soon. Unfortunately, it's kind of dark. Yeah, but that's what that song is about, and the perspective it's from.
Yeah, it's definitely like a dark closer. Would you say you've got an avid interest in true crime?
I'm not sure if I'd say avid interest, but it is very interesting. All those documentaries, and I think that a lot of people probably share that same interest because Netflix keeps shitting them out. So there must be some type of demand there among the masses, some cruel or a sick fascination with murderers and serial killers.
Yeah, I think it's part of like human psychology as well, isn't it? Like how are people in the mindset to even consider doing something like that? Never mind actually go ahead with it.
Yeah, it's fairly unbelievable. It's hard to believe that is a real thing. Unfortunately, it is.
Unfortunately, yeah. Well, obviously, I'd say you're probably best known for your being in Inhale the Sun, but you've got a lot of other projects too. You've mentioned before, Kill Iconic, other projects like Nova Charisma. It's like you've got absolutely no chill when it comes to doing stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking at kind of like your output earlier, and it's like you have to put out an album every year. So obviously Dividing Attention's coming out this year. Last year was your solo album, Chelsea Park After Dark. The year before that, New Age Filth. And then you did the 2 previous years before that were the like exposition EPs with Nova Charisma.
Yeah.
How, like, do you have any time to kind of just take a breather, or do you kind of just get a bit antsy and just need to get your hands on doing something?
I definitely get antsy, and I feel like I need to be doing something. A lot of the times I feel like I need to be productive, and that will equate to creating or outputting something, which isn't necessarily always the case. But when I fixate on something, I obsess on it. I just obsess on it. And that's one way to help address that. Like if I like with Nova Charisma, like we got those expositions out. They were all written and recorded within like a 2 or 3 month period. We got them all out within the next 6 months after that. And
That's
with
crazy.
the the Hail albums as well.
Yeah.
Like we hit the ground running, and we'll fixate on that until it's done. I do like to chill. I love to take chill time. I try to do it a lot more now than I
Yeah.
have in the past. I feel like I've allowed myself to take more breaks. I mean, I've been doing this for over 10 years now,
Yeah.
and really stoked on where everything is at. But I like to build things, and I especially like to do it with friends. I love doing shit with friends. Being involved with people who I love being around is a big part of that. It's a big part of Kill Iconic. And like I said with the Tail, I've known those guys for so long that it's just very rewarding. And when we're going through a flow and we're building something and creating something under like I have always wanted to do something under my own umbrella because I do like to work a lot, and I like to create. And Kill Iconic became the umbrella I can do a lot of that under. I wanted to do clothing stuff, and there's Kill Iconic Echo Park, Kill Iconic Records, and it all started from the magazine, just Kill Iconic essentially. That is, it feels like a really fulfilling use of my time, and I feel really good about it. But I do get stressed out. I get really stressed out. When I start getting stressed out is when I have to remind myself what I'm doing is fun. And
Yeah.
if it's really not fun at the moment, it's okay to go for a walk or go see a movie or really just do anything else. Like that's totally okay. But I do like to fill my time with those things, not only because it's creating, but because it is fun. And I
Yeah.
like to do things that are fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I don't know someone who works like quite as hard as you. And I guess my follow-up question is, how do you kind of avoid and manage burnout when it, unfortunately inevitably happens?
I feel like it's my character, my personality is the type that just if there's something that has to be done or a fire to be put out, I just naturally jump into that mindset and into
Right.
that rule. It's like almost like I can't afford myself to have the time to burn out,
Right.
really. But there's enough time in the day for all that stuff, and there's enough time in the day. Especially, I realized I'm not the best at it, but utilizing early mornings, you get like another 2 hours out of your day. And
Mm.
when I can do that, when I can be up really early and sit and not do anything, it's a really good start to my day. I get really centered very early. I'm totally alert before I start to check things. I'm a booking agent as well. I work for an agency called Sound Talent Group, and I have a roster of amazing artists that I book. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be a part of such a great agency as a full-time booking agent as well. I feel like having Kill Iconic and Hail the Sun has allowed me a really unique perspective on booking bands even and artist careers and just the touring business in general. And I like to bring that to artists that I work with as well. There's plenty of time in the day. There really is. It's just about how I utilize it and making sure that I'm not burning myself to the ground by stepping away. Because even if I step away for an hour, I come back more rejuvenated than I would have been if I just bulldogged it,
Yeah.
And these days, like, I grinded really hard, and I'm not saying that I don't grind to that degree anymore. I feel like it's always going to be in me to do that, just because I like it.
Yeah.
But I feel like the machine is more oiled than it was 5 years ago, right? I can afford to have a little more time and make sure to take the time, especially with all the things that I do have my hand in, to slow my heart rate down. Things that make me that are calming, where I don't have to always be digitally connected to something. I can take the time to go do something unrelated and come back to a project. Because if as mentioned earlier, if it's stressing or causing me great anxiety, then it's lost its fun or its purpose. And I don't want things to feel that way. So I wait till they don't, and then I jump back in.
Yeah, I guess like you say, part of it's kind of you want to do something that's kind of productive and creative because, as fun as, watching films are or, playing video games or whatever it is that you may be into, like what's kind of the end result other than obviously you just kind of taking that chill time out. So before I started this podcast, I used to run like an online music magazine, and then I stopped that after like 10 years. And then after a few months, I was like, I need to do something again. So I started up the podcast. So
hell yeah.
I'm not quite as a massive workaholic machine as you. I don't know. I still can't wrap my head around how you can do all that, but I get the mindset. I definitely get like the need to create and put stuff out there.
Well, I appreciate that. I also have really excellent groups and partners that I work with, like a team for everything that I would not be possible without them to help keep things organized and move things along. It's not just me. I'm very grateful to have such capable people around me.
And I guess as well, like, I don't know if you would agree, but maybe because of what happened with the pandemic, you know, live music was gone. So you couldn't tour with Hail the Sun or your other musical projects. And being a booking agent, you kind of rely on, you know, live music, which wasn't happening for however long it happened. So I guess once things started to get back up again, maybe you was kind of like keen to grab it with both hands because you don't know if anything like that could happen again and it's, you know, taken away from you again.
Exactly. I think that's right. And it was during the pandemic that I saw, I tried to see, I don't want this to come off the wrong way or sound morbid because I don't mean it to be, but I tried to find some type of value with the pandemic. Obviously, I wasn't stoked on things that were happening, but if there was a way to have that be an opportunity to pivot in any way or bring something positive from it, I wanted to try, especially when things opened up again. I wanted to make sure I was positioned in a way where, I'd be able to jump back in. And as you mentioned, everything went away, and including my income and my revenue streams. So that helped. I'd wanted to do the magazine for many years before that, but I just didn't have the time or didn't really know how to get off the ground. Or at times would think, oh, it's just too difficult. How could I ever do that? It's too much work, which is one of the mindsets that I helped overcome during the pandemic with the whole anything is capable type of mentality. But I thought of ways that could generate revenue, that could still do things that were fun with people that I enjoyed being around, that didn't involve or need boring business. And magazine has subscription based, right? I mean, I wanted to do it anyway for the creative output, but on the business end, subscription based things do not need touring. And record labels, the same thing. With these days to streaming, you don't need necessarily to be touring all the time, and you can still sell records online as well. Yeah. And that could help on the business end. That also seemed like it could be a lucrative thing to start to build over time. It's definitely a big investment at first, but I feel like over time it starts to really generate its own life. And that's something that I got going during the pandemic as well, and a ticketing company as well. But that was once stuff actually started opening up again. We pivoted to that.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, like you said, it was something that you always kind of wanted to do, but it was finding the adequate time and, you know, energy that you could actually put into it to actually make it kick off, you know, and hit the ground running. And, you know, as horrible as the pandemic was, no one's saying it was a good thing, but it did afford you kind of the time to get it up and going, you know, and that's when you founded Kill Iconic, which started as a magazine, but then it became like a label and a clothing line. And I think you have like a festival as well.
Yeah.
So it just kind of grew legs into this whole kind of, I think you said earlier, like an enterprise, Kill Iconic Enterprises.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Like it's, I don't know kind of where else you would kind of extend the arms of Kill Iconic to kind of like bring more things into whatever it could potentially be.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm with you. I'm always thinking of ways to continue to develop things. But and the festival was the latest entity. Hopefully, we'll have a festival style tour within the next few years. That can maybe be during summertime or something with like a 7-band bill or something like that.
Starting off the next Warped Tour sounds like.
Yeah. It'd be very cool to just bring something like that across the country. Plus, I just like working with, we've got so many great relationships in this industry and outside of it. And the magazine and label, it affords me just more opportunities to work with really cool people and really creative people who, whether we're interviewing them or they're placing ads in our magazine or they're directly working on a project with me. It's just fun to be around those personality types.
Yeah. And I guess that kind of, you know, go into these ventures through Kill Iconic, you can kind of take those skills back with you into like Hail the Sun, because I imagine when you were setting up Kill Iconic, you had to obviously learn the other sides of the industry and the business. So like creating and running a magazine and sending out in subscriptions and stocking it in stores and, kind of interview processes and then
Yeah.
ticketing and, setting up a festival and doing events like that. So you're kind of getting experience in all these different areas of the industry. And I guess you can take some of that experience into, like you say, into your bands like Hail the Sun and Nova Charisma.
Yeah, they all sort of feed each other. And I really try to think of I try to treat my brain as a sponge for everything at all times. We're getting value every single day from multiple places.
Yeah.
And with the magazine, it was funny because 10 years ago, when I was first becoming a booking agent, or more than 10 years ago now, maybe about 10 years ago, I would aggressively research venues, promoters, local bands, and just email all these people all the time, trying to get my band or a band I was working with into this space, into this room, or on a certain show. And when the pandemic hit, it felt like I was doing the exact same thing again, but for magazines. I was like, I was hustling magazines, and I put together a massive list of record stores across the country and hit up talent buyers that I knew in every major city and asked their opinion on the best record store in their area. I would find that contact and get them a pitch email. It was like instead of booking bands, I was booking magazines all over again and trying to sell these magazines to stores. And just like the beginning times, for every 10 emails, I maybe get one response. And for every 10 responses, I might make like 5 sales. But it was fun, and it had me on my toes again. It felt like I had some purpose again, and felt like I was utilizing that time in a way that made me feel fulfilled again with a new project.
Yeah, just evidence that being in a band, you can have transferable skills. So
yeah, you fucking need to have additional skills. I mean, especially at the beginning, you got to get creative.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of kind of transferable skills and learning new things, I believe you've also been taking pilot lessons to get a private pilot's license. Is that right?
Yeah, I started in the pandemic. I admittedly haven't been flying in a bit,
Right.
But I did start in 2020 training. Same reason, I was like losing my mind, and I needed to. I wanted to also, on top of the Kill Iconic stuff, I thought it might be kind of nice to try to learn a skill that was totally different than anything I had done before, and that didn't involve music. And my agent for at the time, just solo stuff in Nova Charisma. He's now Hail the Sun's agent as well, and a mentor and boss. But he's also a pilot, and so I asked him a bunch of questions because I used to be afraid of flying up until 2016. Like, I would get my heart would race every time I got on a plane. I would be very anxious, but I started flying all the time, and I began to really like flying. I liked the whole experience of travel, and I would start flying all the time with Delta. I could talk forever about Delta. I won't get into it right now, but Delta Airlines is the best. I'll just say that. And became very, very used to flying all the time. And then I just thought to myself, like, it might be kind of cool if I was doing this on my own. Like, if there was ever a time where my quality of life could afford to take myself places, that would be a very, very cool thing to do on my own. And so I started taking lessons. And it was very scary at first. I think the first 2 lessons, I thought, there's no way I'm going to continue this. But I did. I kept doing it. And hopefully I can finish up here shortly and get that license, because
fingers crossed,
it'd be cool. It'd be cool to I would do it more for travel sake and not necessarily just flying around for fun.
Yeah.
I love to go see different artists play in different states and cities. It's one of my favorite things to do. If I'm not touring, I'll look at my calendar, and I have a spreadsheet that shows when certain artists or certain tours that I've booked are in different cities, and I'll try to plan trips that way. And so I thought it'd be kind of nice if one day I can just fly myself to Arizona, just wake up and go to Arizona to see a show. So hopefully we get there.
Yeah, one day you can just wake up like, what am I doing to do today? I'll just fly to Arizona, fly to see this show or go to this festival.
Yeah. I feel like I still have a ways until I get there, and I definitely got to carve out more time in my schedule to finish that. But I think it will happen, and it'll be cool when it does. It'll just be another skill set that I'm able to put into action.
Yeah. Well, who knows, like in 10, 20, 30 years, whatever, you could be like Bruce Dickinson in Iron Maiden, and you can fly across the world when you're touring. You don't need to get an airline.
Yeah, maybe.
You got to dream big, man.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
Are there any other like projects or achievements you want to do, either, music related or outside, that you've not had the chance to do yet?
I do want to own a restaurant. I want to have an Italian restaurant at some point, and I definitely will. There's a restaurant that Eric and I worked at during high school and early college before we moved up to Northern California. In Ventura, California, it was called Big Al's Old Mountain House. And one of my sister's soccer teammates' moms owned the place, and she hired me when I was like 15 and a half. I started as a dishwasher and eventually started cooking there. And I got Eric a job. I think he was maybe 17 when he started working there as well. It was such a great time. The place has since closed, but in my opinion, they still have the best fucking pizza I've ever had. It's something about the sauce. It was so good. They had such great pasta. Everything was really delicious. And I would love to at some point open up a second version of that restaurant. I don't really know where, but I think it'd be great to have a restaurant enterprise. And I do want to also look more into down the line, maybe investment in property and see what that game looks like.
Well, speaking of Italian food and pizza, I've asked a few guests this on some previous podcasts. For some reason, pizza comes up. What are your perfect toppings for pizza? What's your go-to?
Okay. I am a cheese pizza type of guy. So outside of just cheese, I love bell pepper and Impossible beef. And the only place that I know that does that is a pizza chain called Pizza Guys throughout the West Coast. Right. At least I know they're in Portland because I ate it almost like 3 times a week while recording New Age Filth and Dividing Your Attention. And they have it in California as well. Impossible beef and bell peppers. That is the best combination.
If you ever come out there, I'm going to try that. What I
you should
is jalapenos and pineapple together, sweet and spice.
Oof, that is like opposite of what I would ever order. But I know that's a very popular combination. Pineapple's not bad, but I can't do spicy shit. I'm a baby when it comes to that.
Fair enough. It's not for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think, was it 2009 you guys formed?
2009. Hill-a-thon's history is, I mean, Eric and I were doing it since 2007, arguably. So we first started writing what would be Hail the Sun type songs. We were in punk bands since 2002. Eric and I were middle schoolers. We were in this band called Returnal in 8th grade and 7th and 8th grade. We with some of our best friends, we put out our own CDs, self-recorded, sold it around our school in 8th grade. And that evolved into like the metalcore scene, 9th to 10th grade. And like, I think 11th to 12th grade ish, we that changed into like more of a death metal or progressive death metal band.
Right.
Still Eric and I and other friends. And around our senior year, we started pivoting into more of a Hail the Sun style sound. It wasn't purely heavy. It wasn't purely soft, but I love blast beats. We love fast shit. We got really inspired by bands like Between the Buried and Me. And when their album Alaska came out, mixed with our fascination with Mars Volta and At the Drive-In albums and Follow Troy, like it was just all these influences coming together. And we started to kind of write Hail the Sun type stuff around that time. But we do feel like 2009 is when it was solidified because we met Shane in college and we met John in college, and they both officially became a part of the band in late 2009. And I don't even think John it was ever like hey, do you want to now be in our band? We need a bassist because our bassist, who's still a really good friend of ours, was leaving the band in college. And we needed someone to fill in for 2 shows. So John lived in the dorms of Shane. Shane asked, and we had done a battle of the bands before, me, John, and Shane, for whatever reason, under the name Cal at some point. So we asked John to fill in. And after that, we had a tour coming up. And we're like, hey, do you want to do the tour? And he was like, okay, sure. And that was that. We never even asked him, or we never gave him the option to back out. He was just in it. After that.
Yeah.
He was just in it. It was like, okay, you're in now. And we're going to do all this stuff. And I'm really glad that he stuck it out, and that all of us stuck it out. But very long way of saying 2009, late 2009 is like we feel like it was solidified.
Yeah.
The lineup that is stuck till now.
Yeah. So that would make obviously next year the 15th anniversary of
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's fucking wild. Yeah. Yep. And Alan joined up with us in 2016.
Crazy, man. What do you think kind of made your band so resilient despite the obvious ups and downs of any band that would last that long, and navigating the industry and when you look back at that career now, like 15-year career almost, like what kind of sticks out? What kind of the main moments of that career? And if you were going to summarize your career, what would you say? Like, how do you look at your career today?
I feel like there is a bit of luck, but at the same time, I would argue that the forces that be brought us together because we were going to work in that way.
Yeah.
But either way, there's a little bit of that. But also, if I can say so myself, we're rational guys. No one has, like, we've all grown together and we've learned how to deal with each other's personalities. And I feel like we're all intelligent beings as well. We all, like, the band really started to gain traction when the last of us had graduated college. We all just understanding and kind of always chose ourself and our friendship over everything. There was never like any type of position we ever had to be in that was like choosing, quote unquote, making like a typical industry business move over our friendship. We've all been really good friends. That really has come first. We're really good communicators. We're good at talking if there's issues, and that has taken some developing of our skill set. But that goes a long fucking way, dude. Just to be able to talk and voice and also get on the phone when text messages maybe you're getting misconstrued. Like, get on a phone call, stay in touch, be vocal about the way we're feeling, and be rational. And luckily, the creative input has all stayed in line. I would argue is the most important part of it. Our influences and our creative avenues individually continue to align with each other. And I think that also has been a very fortunate thing for us, because I know some people grow apart musically or stylistically. And because of our varied backgrounds of genre, interest, and bands that we've listened to growing up, there's a really wide pot that we can have a jazz part breakdown in a song with grindcore in it. And it's not super weird. No one has to be like, we're going in too much of a different direction. I think I'm going to leave. It's never been like that. We're able to cultivate a really positive environment. And I would say right now it's always been good, but it's just a really great oiled working machine right now with the way that we all are able to hang out. And we see bands like Silverstein. There's many out there, but the first one that comes to brain, it's to my head is when we toured with Silverstein, just seeing how those guys are now. They're all such good friends, and there's nothing wrong about bands that are more maybe business partners instead. Like, people kind of grow apart, but the band does well, and so they keep the business going. That's totally fine. We are more on the end where the business is continuing to grow, but our friendships are also like the most important thing, and that has helped many predicaments that have never really forced us into a position where I would say it was possible the band wouldn't be around anymore. But it's helped overcome obstacles that I could definitely see other situations going completely opposite directions because of unreasonable methods of dealing with things.
Yeah, that's really good to hear that you guys are in such a great place this far along. Like I said before, it's a rarity, unfortunately, but you guys are still grinding and, like you say, in a better place than you've ever been.
Totally. Yeah. And our schedules, all as crazy as they are, everyone carves out the time that's needed to do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have side hustles, and half of us work from the road as well. But we make it all work because, ultimately, it's fun. We wouldn't have done it for like no money for the first 6 to 8 years if it wasn't fun. And if we didn't see a future or see the promise in where this was going, I think we always all kind of felt it and tasted it and knew that as long as we kept at it, and it was still fun, that it would turn into something we could do for a living. And it's nice to be along that path right now.
Well, speaking of current day, Hail the Sun, we got this album come out on August 11th. You're on the road right now. What other plans are in motion at the moment that you can talk about throughout 2023?
Really, more touring. We have some unique merchandise things that we're going to be launching shortly. Chronicle type stuff. We're very, very grateful for the type of community and culture that we are a part of, and that we feel like our listeners also enjoy. And so stuff along those lines, but really nothing too crazy out of the ordinary that I can say on this podcast, other than more touring, and more Hail the Sun themed special items. A
Very
chronicle
ominous,
full of
but
items, if you will.
yeah, very ominous, but sounds exciting. Sounds exciting.
Yeah, we're stoked.
Well, before I let you go, Donovan, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time out to speak with me, to speak about the new album, Divine Attention, out August 11th. Before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your day, have you got any final words, anything you want to say, anything you want to plug? The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Well, you already said the biggest thing, Divine Intertentions out August 11th. So much variety on that album. We're on tour with Being As an Ocean, Kaonashi, and Origami Button. All great bands. When this podcast airs, there'll still be a week left of that tour, mostly on the West Coast. It's been the best headline tour that we've done to date. And it just continues to be so much fun. That's really all I have to plug outside of Kill Iconic. Check out Kill Iconic. It's a magazine, a record label, clothing. It's sort of like a little community in its own, a little world of its own, if you will. But I actually wanted to add one thing to, I was thinking as we ended this interview about what you would ask about how we've maybe managed to stay same guys and like what has helped us get to this point. And outside of just being really close, I will say we've never forgotten our roots. We've never forgotten just how important every person in those rooms are. We do feel like the experience for everyone is like the people who buy tickets to shows and who buy anything that we're selling are really the most important, within reason, of course, right? Yeah. But we want to make sure that like we've never forgotten that. Down to when we would have 5 people come to shows, and we just played like there were 100 people in the room because there were still 5 people there. And we really, really appreciate something as simple as the vehicle that we travel in now. It's called a bandwagon. It's basically a bus without a back lounge and a driver. I mean, we drove ourselves for 9 years in a van and trailer that we owned, that we paid off with royalties from our self-owned albums. All those little things, I think they're always innate in us. They're instilled in us. And when we think of things that way, it does create a sense of accomplishment and gratitude all over again. And we all feel it. We're so grateful to not have to drive ourselves on these drives. And I get excited about being in this tour bus now, even though we're so many years in, because we all remember what it was like to grind away and sleep on floors. We were so used to that for so many years. Like we slept on floors, and it really built character in the band, and it helped lead so that every point along the way felt earned. Not that it needs to, not that a band has to go through that, but for us, remembering our DIY roots and everything that has happened up to this point, I feel like has humbled us and has made us very appreciative of just the common everyday things of touring these days. And that has helped us stay centered.
Yeah, I guess it's appreciating what you've got and trying not to forget, kind of where you came from, what you've worked through to get to where you are. And like you say, that within reason, like the fans are the priority, aren't they? Because if there's no fans, there's no one at the shows, there's no one listening to your music, and essentially there's no band. Exactly. And that's something we never lose sight of. Like I said before, man, it's only going up from here. Like this new album's fantastic. Best of luck with it, and everything that comes off the back of it. Thanks again for speaking to me. I really appreciate your time, dude. Thank you. I'll let you go. Enjoy the rest of your day. Best of luck with the rest of the tour, and speak to you soon. Sounds good. Thank you. Take care. Bye. Bye. And that is it. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you enjoyed this or any other episode of the podcast, then please leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. If you want to support the podcast further, you can go and give it a follow on social media, pick up something from the merch store, or subscribe to the Patreon to get early access to episodes. All the links can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again, hopefully catch you on the next one, and remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.